Hi, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower, and today we're going to discuss three-heart relationships. We'll discuss what is a three-heart relationship, how to know if you're in a three-heart relationship, and if you are, how to get out of the relationship, or how to give a widower a chance to make it a two-heart relationship. So, for those who don't know, a three-heart relationship is where the widower still actively loves his late wife. Now, the key word I'm using in that sentence is actively. Men can only actively love one woman at a time. I'll explain that in a sec. Now, widowers are always going to love their late wife, and that's fine. They can make a special place in their heart for her, but to actively love someone is different than not actively loving them. To actively love someone is to give that person the top mind and their top place in their mind and heart. So let me give you a personal example. So in my case, Krista has a special place. My late wife, Krista, she has a special place in my heart. It's a very small place, and I can go there from time to time if I want, but 99.99% of my actions and 99.99% of my thoughts are on Julie and our relationship and our kids and living life and just moving forward. So that's how if you're that's what it means to actively love someone. Again, the widowers are always going to love their late wife. There's nothing wrong with that, but they should be focused on you, and that's really how you know if you're in a three-heart relationship. I know some of you are listening to this and saying, "Well, I think I am. Am I?" Well, it's pretty easy to know if you're in a three-heart relationship. Basically, all you have to do is watch the widower's actions and how he treats you. Does he treat you like the number one person in his life? Does he treat you like you'd expect any other man to treat you, or do you make excuses for his behavior because he suffered a loss? Do his actions, do they make you feel like a mistress or number two? Do you feel like, for example, you're competing against a ghost? Just an example, does your widower, does he constantly talk about his late wife or the past? Does he refuse to put away photos of the late wife? Does he make excuses as to why you haven't met his family and friends? In short, does he act like a man who's in love with you, or is he acting like a man who's looking for someone to fill the void in his heart? That's only a question you can answer, but if your gut's telling you that, he's filling a void, or, you feel like number two, probably in a three-heart relationship. I think there's a pretty good chance of that you're in a three-heart relationship. Now, you have to be careful. If you go online, there are lots of widower and widow groups that promote this mentality. Basically, they say if you're dating a widow or a widower, that you being the person that's dating the widow or widower, you just don't understand their loss. And as a result, because you don't understand their loss, you not only need to tolerate but support all of their widow and widower behavior, as they devote their heart and mind to their late spouse instead of you. So, they want to, go run the 5K and hang a giant picture of the late spouse in there. And it's basically, the relationship, let's just face it, the relationship is basically about, hanging on. It's hanging on to their past and their love and wanting a relationship now. Basically, they want their cake and they want to eat it too. And let's just be honest, that's not healthy, and that's why. And if you want to know why it's not healthy, relationships and marriages to widows and widowers, most of them do not work out. I mean, I've heard, again, stats all over the place, but divorce statistics for widows and widowers who remarry is extremely high. I've heard anywhere from about 66% to as high as 85. It's probably somewhere in between that, but most remarriages to widows and widowers don't work out, and you know why it doesn't work out? The number one reason that they don't work out is because it's a three-heart relationship, and the other person, the person that's married to a widow or widow, finally gets tired of it, and they're tired of having their wants and their needs and their feelings ignored, and having this dead person basically part of their marriage, which seems to be the most important part of their marriage. I can't even count the number of coaching sessions I've done where the person I'm talking with is in tears because they feel like the widower they're dating spends more time thinking about and honoring the late wife instead of her and the relationship. I mean, their focus is all on that, and honestly, not healthy. It's not good. And if you're in a group that's promoting that mentality, probably not good for you, and probably not good for the widower, because I guarantee at some point the relationship will come to a screeching halt, because not only does it not help, not only does it keep the widower in the past, but it doesn't let them open up and see what a blessing they have to find love again a second time. Now, some of you are listening to this and you're evaluating your current relationship, and some of you are probably thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in a three-heart relationship, and you're wondering if the widower will change, or if it's possible even for the widower to change. Well, the good news is that widowers can change, and they can change their focus, and they can make it a two-heart relationship. If I'm going to be honest with you, I think every widow or widower who starts, no matter how ready they say they are, no matter how long they've waited, I think every relationship with a widow or widower begins as a three-heart relationship, and the widow or widower has to learn how to put their feelings for their late spouse in a special place and open up their heart. And they can do it if they really want to, but it's nothing that it can't be forced. You can't go to them and say, look, you need to make this a two-heart relationship. That's not how it works. Basically, if you're in a three-heart relationship, the way you get it to work is you set healthy boundaries around their behavior and their actions, and you give them a chance to turn it into a two-heart relationship. So, for example, like say, again, they have photos of the late wife everywhere. I use this because it's a common one. Or maybe there's photos of the late wife in the bedroom and her stuff's still in the closet and toiletries are still in the bathroom. So, you'd set a healthy boundary by saying, hey, if you want me to spend time with you in the bedroom or in your house, you've got to make it a place where I feel comfortable. Again, not necessarily telling them what to do, but you're saying, I don't feel comfortable here. I feel like, again, you can phrase this better than me, but you can say something like, I don't feel like you're ready to move on. I feel like, you're stuck in the past, whatever, and give them a chance to do it. Give them a chance to show through their actions that they're willing to make it a two-heart relationship, or that they're willing to make changes so you feel like a priority in their life. Again, one of the stories I always tell is that Julie and I have been dating for several months, and we're finally serious. And I just got on this big, long, like 15-mile run with her, and it's after the run, and she kind of looks at me and says, "I don't think you're ready to move on." And I'm like, you mean I'm not ready to move on? I just ran 15 miles with you. It's like, I don't just do that for anybody. You're probably the only person in the world I would ever do that for. And anyway, long story short, she was talking. I wore I wore my wedding band on a chain around my neck. She wasn't a fan of that. Felt like, the fact that I was wearing that was an indication that I wasn't ready to move on. I kind of pouted for a day, and then I kind of thought, she's right. I love Julie. I want her to feel like, number one, I'm not going to let the wedding band come between us. And I took the chain off, and so far we've lived happily ever after. But it's basically things like that. It's like the only reason I made our relationship a two-heart relationship is because I wanted to make it a two-heart relationship. There were some things I did on my own to make changes. Sometimes Julie had to bring stuff up, but it always came back to, who do I love more? Or not who do I love more? Let me rephrase that. It always came down to, do I value the past more, or do I value the present and making a new life with Julie more? That's really what it came down to, and that's the question that widowers have to ask themselves. Is they have to be able to value you and want a relationship with you and want a future with you. And you can't have a healthy relationship. In fact, I don't see how you can even have a relationship where they're bringing the past into it. I mean, no one listening to this video would say, well, I'm going to bring my ex-husband or my ex-wife into this. And I know some of you are thinking, well, an ex-spouse is different than a dead spouse. And I'd say for the purposes of a relationship, it's not. It doesn't matter if the spouse, if it's an ex-spouse or a late spouse, if they're living or not. People move on from divorces and they start a new chapter, and I'm not saying it's always the easiest thing. And I know there's subtle differences, but do you really know anybody that's, holding on to their divorce and their ex-spouse that's been able to have a good relationship? I don't. I would say the same thing with widow and widower relationships, and I'd go out on a limb and say that I probably know more widow and widower relationships than basically anybody on the planet. Just in the terms of the volumes of people I've talked to, the people I still keep in touch with, people I coach, people I email. Again, I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of couples over the years, and I still have yet to see a three-heart relationship work out long term. I've seen people rationalize it away and say, well, I'll get used to it, or, in 6 months it'll be better or whatever, and never is. In fact, if you want to see examples of this, if you go to my book, Dating a Widower, there's lots of personal stories from women who shared their stories of dating a widower in there, and some of them are truly heartbreaking of women who are in three-heart relationships. Anyway, this has been Widower Wednesday. Do not get in a 3-heart relationship. Not worth it. Not worth the stress. Not worth all the things. Again, I'm fine giving your widow or widower a chance to make it a 2-heart relationship. I think there is a time and a place for that. But do not get in a long-term relationship. Do not marry someone who cannot let go of the past and make you number one. Never works. It will not work. You want a relationship of 2 hearts, one where you and the widower put each other's wants and needs first, and that's what you're focused on. I'm Abel Keogh. This has been Widower Wednesday. Feel free to comment or subscribe below, share your stories, and I will see you all next Wednesday.